a lot of times, like I've talked to people who work with ayahuasca or yachaks, like the name they have for like shamans in Otavalo, they say yachak, like talking to them or different people that are like healers. It's like a lot of times they have to go through something really difficult and challenging, and they might feel crazy. Like they go through a time in their life and with like their
We've all been through that, right? Hello, and welcome to the Liminal Frequencies podcast, where we dive deep into healing frequencies from our ancestors, frequencies of the earth and stars, sound, color, and light, and all of the subtle ways that we can tap into our unique vibration to awaken the highest timeline and integrate the fullest expression of our being. Now let's dive in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the first episode of the Liminal Frequencies podcast. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Katie Mullen, who is the organizer and facilitator at Alpamama Healing Retreats. She is from Chicago, Illinois, and is Miguel's partner, who is a shaman or curandero. And she has lived in Ecuador for over 4 years and assisting in ayahuasca, San Pedro, and Wilca ceremonies. She gives limpias, which are energetic cleansing, does cleansing rituals, and is learning to hold ceremonies as well. She is honored to be able to work with these sacred medicines and plants and believes that they're here to help us heal and grow, to remember the ancient ways of living and connecting with each other and the earth. And Katie is also an ancestral herbal medicine and midwifery student of Mercedes, who I met at the Hambiwasi Clinic last January, and I had the pleasure of being able to work with them in Ecuador, assisting with her massages, her energetic cleansing, and her herbal remedies. And today we get to catch up about the adventure that I had back to Ecuador to spend time in the clinic and spend time in the beautiful natural features of Otavalo, Ecuador. So here it is, our conversation with Katie about our journey into the Andean plant medicines. I hope you enjoy. Hi, Katie. We're so happy to have you here on the show, the Liminal Frequencies podcast, for our first episode. And so thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jill. Nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, so I want to hear, just for the listeners, a little bit more about what you do, what brought you to Ecuador on your epic adventure there.
Yeah, so I have been living in Ecuador for the past 4.5 years now. And I came here originally just traveling. And then I met my partner, Miguel, here, and I really liked Ecuador and what I was doing. So I ended up staying here. But yeah, I had been studying anthropology in the university before coming here. And I was interested in like traditional spirituality and traditional healing modalities, mainly with plant medicines. And so that's kind of what brought me to Ecuador. And so I came here, and my partner Miguel works with plant medicines like ayahuasca and San Pedro, and he holds ceremonies with these plants. And so I've been learning and helping in these ceremonies. So it wasn't exactly my plan to be working in retreats and ceremonies, but that's how it ended up. And so I've been learning a lot about the plants and about healing spiritually. And the past 9 months or so, I've also been working with a woman named Mercedes, this little indigenous woman from a town called Otavalo, and she is also a healer. She's in Medico Andino, they call it, and so she's like a traditional Andean doctor, and she's also a midwife, And so she does different types of spiritual healing, physical, mental, spiritual healing. So that's what I've been doing here.
It's so fascinating. Well, backing up to just going to the plant medicine ceremonies and participating in the retreats and learning about them, was there like a moment where you're like, I have to do this, I have to learn more about this, or like this is working?
Yeah, I had some experience on my own before coming to Ecuador with mushrooms. And before coming here, I had struggled a lot with depression. And um, actually, I had an eating disorder a bit before too. So I wasn't doing very well in my life, maybe when I was like 18, 19, 20 years old. And a friend introduced me to mushrooms. And at the time, I didn't really know what to think about these types of medicines. I didn't really believe in them too much. I didn't really have many like spiritual beliefs back then, but my experiences with the mushrooms kind of opened me up to this spiritual world, and they really helped me a lot with my mental health and physical health. And they changed a lot in my life, and so I became interested in how people use them traditionally and how you can work with them like in a more specific way for healing,
Like in a ceremony. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting the medicines that have been used in the US recreationally that have a long, journey of being utilized in a ceremony by shamans or curanderos.
Yeah, I had no idea about it. Living in the US, there isn't really this type of shamanism in the US, so I didn't know much about it, but my experiences with the mushrooms kind of opened me up to this world, the spiritual world that exists. And I wonder how people, I mean, I started reading and it's like, wow, people have been working with these for thousands of years, and they use it for healing all different types of things, not just mental illness, but physical illness, or lots of different types of things. So I became interested in how people work with these plants traditionally.
Was there a book that you were reading that got you interested in plant medicines?
After some experiences with mushrooms, I became interested in reading about them a bit. And so I remember there was one book I read called Food of the Gods by Terence McKenna, and I thought that was pretty interesting, and that kind of opened my mind to I became more curious about the history of these plants and traditional uses and whatnot.
I listened to a talk by Terence McKenna once, and he said, if you want, you can intend the mushrooms to be anything. So you can intend them to be like ayahuasca, you can intend them to be like San Pedro, and just to receive the message that you want to receive from that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know, I never thought to ask for that or try that with the mushrooms, but anything's possible. So
yeah, they can be potent for sure. But having the container, I feel like, is so important. Both of us being from the US and just not having the knowledge or understanding of plant medicine and any medicines as part of a traditional ceremony where the process of taking these medicines is healing. And I think that's where a lot of addiction comes from in our society, is people who don't have a context for something that they're taking for healing, and then it can end up becoming a rabbit hole of taking something, and if one time taking it makes you feel so much better, then to continue on that path without really much of a boundary.
Yeah, anything can be medicine, anything can be poison. So just matters your intention.
About the dosage, right?
You don't want to use any. chocolate can be medicine.
Yeah,
So if you eat chocolate,
no. I have a problem. I have a problem with chocolate. I went to a cacao ceremony a couple weeks ago, and I was like, okay, this is a good context for me to not have any chocolate before, and just to feel, what it's like to have the medicine in my system with like in a container in a group. So, but I also don't drink caffeine, and so chocolate has a lot of caffeine in it, so it can be overstimulating if you're not like used to it.
yeah, for sure. But it can also be heart opening, and it can be a medicine too. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
good or bad, I think.
Yeah. And with this cacao ceremonies, if nobody's ever experienced it, it's kind of like you're drinking like the darkest chocolate. There's nothing else in there. It can be a little chalky and it can be a little bit bitter. In this ceremony, we passed around a cup of cacao and we put it to our hearts. And so we sent love into the cacao, so every person in the circle. And so by the time you get the medicine, it just tastes really sweet. And to me, it tasted really good. And the medicine itself, it can be different. I'd had some friends, we would do our own little cacao ceremonies, and the chocolate would taste more bitter or sweeter depending on whose cup it was. So depending on the medicine that we needed. But I think it's common for people to stay up late in those ceremonies and sing and dance together. And so, yeah, the caffeine can be utilized.
Yeah. Yeah, I have never been to a cacao ceremony, but what you're saying makes sense, and I've experienced that like with other medicines too. They have different flavors depending on the person that made it and their intention and your intention
Mm-hmm.
and your prayers. I like a different flavor too.
Yeah, and in Chinese medicine, the flavors go to different parts of the body, different organs, and so that can be a way of receiving the medicine is tasting it on your tongue and knowing what it's doing for you intuitively.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm
Makes
curious
sense.
how plant medicine affected your intuitive perception or your intuitive process once you started working with it.
Yeah, I never considered myself a particularly intuitive person, like before working with plant medicines. I feel like a lot of people who come to plant medicines are just like naturally really like open, and I was not really that type of person. So it's definitely opened me up intuitively, I think. Since working with the plant medicines, like I've learned how I can work with my dreams more for messages, kind of try and connect with my higher self. I like wasn't really a very spiritual person before, but now I am, and I pray all the time, and I think that helps to connect me with my intuition, because I'm always like I'll always take like a moment during the day to pray for my family, for me, for you know, have an intention kind of for my day or my week, and so I feel like
Beautiful.
I'm paying more attention to messages that I might
Mm-hmm.
receive or things which I never believed in or really thought to look for before. Now it's like, maybe I'll be asking for something, and then I'll see something and it'll, have a meaning, or I'll ask for a specific dream maybe to give me guidance, and then I'm
Mm.
able to pay attention a little bit better with my dreams. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's definitely connected a lot more with my intuition.
And is that also true for just living in South America for you?
Yeah, just living here in general. Even if you don't ever drink plant medicines,
Yeah.
people are very different. People here in general are just like more, they just like pay attention more. I don't know how to
Yes.
describe it. They pay attention to things. Like if they're talking to someone and then it's like something happens over here, it's maybe a little strange. It's like they're gonna notice that. Or like they're talking to you and there's like a rainbow. It's like maybe, most people in the US, it's like they're not going to pay attention to something like that a lot of times. But like here, people are just like always kind of noticing things more, which is a lot different. People are, I don't know how to describe it, just more intuitive, more open to receiving messages. It seems like in general here.
Because in those vortexes, I think, isn't Vilcabamba a vortex?
Probably.
Or ley lines.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think they call that, like, when there's ley lines in the earth, the tectonic plates are open to these portals in the earth, it seems like.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I haven't honestly read much about ley lines, but people definitely call it a vortex here. It has a special energy to it for sure.
Beautiful. Yeah, so let's talk about, so I went down there for a couple of weeks, and we both got to spend some time catching up, and we got to spend some time in the clinic of Mercedes, which is Hambiwasi, and it's this Andean clinic where they practice traditional medicine, and they also have Western medicine. She's a partrera, which is a midwife, and she practices mostly massages and also limpia, cleansing energies, the spiritual energy cleansing that involves a lot of perfumes, a lot of natural scents, sometimes volcanic rocks and rattles and sounds, and some prayer that comes into it. And then also does that for children, usually with an egg when the children are in shock. I'm missing anything with that?
Yeah, that's something that's really different, obviously, from like the US. Yeah, so she's like a doctor basically, but works with herbs. Yeah, she does massages, kind of like natural treatments for people. And yeah, one aspect of that is like the limpia. So that's like cleaning the energy of a person. So they have different names for different types of problems someone might be experiencing. So sometimes kids will have like susto, they call it. It's like shock. Maybe the kid will be having like nightmares, or they're crying all the time and like nervous and just like bad character, they say here. And so maybe they've been like shocked by something, like maybe they fell off a bike or something like scared them, and it's almost like their spirit kind of like leaves a little bit, is what they call it. And so yeah, they'll do a limpia for this. And so in the limpias with children or adults, they'll use like different types of perfumes, like rocks, different like sounds. Sometimes people will use like a maraca, or she has like this like rain shaker thing, rain stick, yeah. And an egg a lot of times too. So they'll clean the person with an egg, and so they say the egg is kind of like this cell that absorbs the bad energy of the person.
And she didn't really do this, but when you take the egg and you break it into a glass of water after the limpia, usually there's something in there for you, like some information or like...
Yeah, you can read it too. I'm like learning how to, that's like where you have to be very connected with your intuition to be able to like read the egg, because they'll crack the egg into the water and then they'll look at it and they'll see like, oh, this is stomach problem, or there's a problem with the kidneys, or there's someone who died, or close to you, or there's someone sending you who's jealous of you, sending you bad energy. Like they'll just like put the egg in a cup and read it. But Mercedes is like special. She doesn't even need to like look at the egg. She just kind of can like work with the person, and she'll see just like a vision or something of what's wrong with them. She'll see like, oh, they have this and this and this, and they have
it's kind of like tarot cards, right? When people read tarot cards, it gives the person like this sort of, it feels almost safer to have somebody read tarot cards for you than to have somebody tell you what's in your mind.
Right, yeah. A lot of times it's just like, they're just there are people here too who would like read cards, or Miguel reads like Wilca seeds too for people, but it's not even like necessary really. It's just like they're able to connect with the energy of the person, but they just like will use the card sometimes so that the person will, be able to see a little bit of what's happening.
It's almost like having a medium for something instead of like directly working with the psychic energy, having something in between that, in between the spirit world and the human world, which those things, those seeds or the cards or the eggs, those are like earthly things.
Yeah. Yeah, but it can be helpful too if you're not able to just like connect 100% with a person just looking at them. Then it's like, oh, you can see something a little clearer in the egg, or like people in Peru, I think, read like coca leaves. So
Wow.
they read like tea leaves, I think, in Japan or something like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes read. So there are all these different types of mediums. Yeah, the egg is one though. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when we saw the Espanto, the kids that were in shock, that was kind of dramatic because sometimes they would come in and they didn't particularly look upset. And then after she cleansed the energy, they'd start crying or they start releasing their emotions, or they didn't really look right anymore.
Right, yeah. Yeah, sometimes kids will just come in like happy-go-lucky, and then it's like it brings these things to the surface, and it kind of helps like release them, so then maybe they cry or
I have like a lot of experiences with that in my own work when I work with my psychic field and clearing things where I don't know what's wrong, but I feel like something in my throat or something physically, and once I tune into my channels and open things up and connect to what's actually going on, I will have an emotional release, or I'll realize I need to have a conversation with somebody, something's coming up for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, the physical, the emotional, spiritual, it's all related. So, yeah, I feel like feeling a pain in your throat, or there's something with the thyroid, maybe there's something you need to say, or something you need to get out.
Yeah, it feels like it's almost always the case that there is a spiritual reason and a physical reason for everything, and when we can tune into the spiritual reason, we can heal a lot faster from what's happening.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's one thing that's like, it was like a really big, not like shock, but it was like something I had to learn, like being here, because we don't ever talk about that in the US, like with health. It's just like separated physical.
Yeah.
You're depressed, it's just that.
Yeah.
Here, it makes more sense too. Everything is.
We're good at compartmentalizing.
Yeah. You're just anxious. That's nothing else. Just,
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's really beautiful that path where, holistically, where somebody's having, like, say they're having an awakening, but the symptom of the awakening is anxiety and stress and insomnia and, all of the things. And, assuming in other cultures where they have more connection to indigenous medicine, they're seeing this person is going through a huge threshold and then giving them the resources to do well, giving them the need that they have to sit in the ceremonies and get extra support, instead of the opposite of that is trying to turn all of those things off by putting them into institution, putting them into the system and medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times, like I've talked to people who work with ayahuasca or yachaks, like the name they have for like shamans in North Vala, they say yachak, like talking to them, or different people that are like healers. It's like a lot of times they have to go through something really difficult and challenging, and they might feel crazy, like they go through a time in their life and with like their
we've all been through that, right?
There's something's happening. Like I talked to one guy who is a Shuar shaman who works with ayahuasca, and he was saying when he was young, like he had to go to like the hospital. He was in the psychiatric unit because like his family thought he was going crazy, and I didn't know exactly what happened. He didn't like explain the details too much, but he was going through this really difficult like initiation sort of.
Yeah, it's amazing. I felt a lot of stuff around initiation, around the eclipse, and even this new moon, that I was going through some tests, some serious tests, in order to kind of up level spiritually. And I feel like if you have the language and the context for it, of an initiation, of challenges that will help you later down the road, it's a lot easier than if the mindset is like, oh, all these things are happening to me.
Yeah. And a lot of times, like, things will repeat in our lives. Like, we have a very challenging thing that'll happen, and then it's like it'll go through a cycle, and then maybe it'll happen again, and it's something similar that'll like bring up these same feelings and emotions, and it'll remind us of something similar that happened before, or maybe like we didn't react very well the first time, or but we have like opportunities to change the way we react.
Yeah, absolutely. We can shift, and I mean, seeing the energy, like my big thing that happened, one of the big things that happened while I was in Ecuador was I was coming back from the hot spring in Cayambe. It was really beautiful, and I went to a bus stop, and I stopped at this petrol station, and I was walking towards the bathroom, and this dog barked at me, and I kind of just like swung my energy towards the dog and was just like, hey, you know, like you don't need to bark at me. And then the dog got really pissed. And as I was walking into the bathroom, the dog bit my Achilles heel, and it was like, ow, that really hurt. And, you know, I could tell the dog was just kind of aggressive, but mostly just at me, because when I left the bathroom, I went to buy some water, and like the dog kind of kept like wanting to just tell me what's up. And you know, it was afterwards, it was really nice because I stopped for the bus, and this guy gave me, it was yerba de tomate, or one of the herbs for, I think it was for infection, to prevent infection. But it was interesting because I saw Mercedes the next day in the clinic, and she said that I had some bad energy, and that was causing the dog to bite me. And I had experience before with helping a friend to clear a house, and the dog kind of growled at me. And when the dog growled at me, you know, after knowing me for, you know, a couple of hours, I knew that dog was on to something, that there was some energy attached to me, and I needed to tend to that and clear it. So I did feel like a lot different walking around and seeing dogs in the town in Otavalo. I didn't feel like threatened. I felt like all the dogs were really friendly after I got that cleared. So it's interesting what, you know, in a Western world, we don't really see those invisible things, that you might have some bad energy, but it may manifest as you're not sleeping very well, or you're not getting along with anybody, or you're too in your head.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. In the US, they would just be like, oh, just mean dog or something. But
yeah, they would put the dog down, or like, yeah.
Yeah, dogs can feel things and see things. All animals, but yeah, if you have bad luck, if you're, you know, having problems in your relationship, or things just like aren't flowing right in your life, then they would say like you have some kind of bad energy. Maybe you got it like from someone else. They'll say like maybe someone has envy of you. It's like something common that they say here. Or because it's a little different, the culture. The culture is amazing here, but people can be like a little envious, And so people will often like come into the clinic and they'll find like, oh, there's someone that has like some envy or sending some bad energy to you basically. Or you can just through your own actions, have bad energy too. So that's why Olympia is helpful. So it cleans up the bad energy, and then it helps things to flow better. You feel better physically. You're more calm. Things are like working better in your life. So.
And you see that a lot in retreats, right? People come in with things just aren't quite right, or they have bad luck, or something's just not flowing well.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like hard to avoid in the Western society, I feel like, because people are just so stressed usually in everyday life in the West. Like, it's pretty common to have some bad energy. Yeah, people are stressed a lot and working a lot, worrying about money, worrying about, not having enough time to do all the things they need to do, or conflicts at work, or not seeing their family enough, or not having enough time to be in nature. So, yeah.
Yeah, just kind of out of balance and taking on something that isn't for your highest good, or having this, this voice or this disapproval that's clinging to you. I would think that would be like bad energy also.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're like very critical of yourself, yeah. Or you live with someone who's very critical of you, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, what were some other moments that we experienced with Mercedes that were really telling, or that you thought was really interesting, and how you learned more about the medicine?
Yeah, with Mercedes, lots of interesting things. It's always interesting being with her. It's just so different. Like, well, one thing that is such great medicine being there is all the laughter. I feel like she's just always laughing. She's like the best laugh.
You can hear
But
her from a
something
mile away.
yeah, I know. You can know she's coming because you hear a laugh. Yeah, people are just like always talking with each other. Like we'll be on the street and just pick someone up who needs a ride somewhere, and then they'll be talking 5 seconds with the person and just be like cracking up, just like completely losing it with this like stranger that they just met on the street. So people are
Nice.
just like friendly with each other, and she's just so goofy. I don't know if that's like the culture or if it's just her. I think it's both, but yeah, that's like one of the best medicines though, is just the laughter. But yeah, lots of really interesting experiences. Yeah. Mm. Like, it's just amazing how in tune she is with people. Like, we had a couple come into the clinic and they were saying, like, they wanted Olympia, they had bad energy, and they had some physical problems, like, all over the body, basically. They were feeling pains and issues and bad digestion and problem with the heart, like, wasn't beating right or something. All these problems, and right away, like Mercedes knew, oh well, the reason you're having all these problems is because like your husband is a drug trafficker, and right, it's like thinking about leaving you because she doesn't, she thinks she's in danger because of your dangerous job, and your wife is thinking about leaving.
Wow.
But that would actually be a bad idea because I don't know. She like went on to explain.
The woman was the patient.
Yeah, there was like a couple, a man and a wife, and they didn't mention anything about what they did for work or why they came in, and she just like knew right on the spot.
True.
And they were like, actually, yeah, that's true. They like conceded that it was true. So. Yeah, that happens a lot where she'll just say, oh, it's because like your husband cheated on you and that's why you have this.
Yeah, mostly emotional, right? There's I think people want this, and I experience in my practice, people want to come in and have me give them this huge technical reason why they are having struggles, and it's like, no, there's a lot of grief to process in your life, and it's, you know, the process that they're going through, it's not going to be avoided or escaped. It has to be experienced, and having some support is really good for that, of course, but to completely bypass it for a specific physical reason that there's things that are wrong in their body, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be that easy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a lot of times people go through some kind of trauma and that will like stay, it hurts you emotionally and will stay in the body. It might cause like a physical issue over time if you're not able to like move past it or forgive the person, forgive yourself, like move on. But if you like hold on to the resentment or grief or anger, it's like then it'll come up as physical issues.
Yeah, it's amazing how simple it is that you can just cut through everything else and just say, like, you might want to look at this, or even having somebody say something to you. I asked Mercedes what was going on with my sleep, or if there was an herb that would help me sleep, and she just kind of cut straight to the center of the root of why I wasn't sleeping and the issues that I had with like family and with just being like feeling a little unsupported, and nothing for me in my life really necessarily had to change, but just like knowing that was maybe a cause of something brings it to the forefront, and it's not hiding in the shadows anymore, and it really can't affect you the way that it can if it's just smoldering, right?
Yeah, exactly. It can help just to know like why you're feeling a certain way. Yeah, once you know the cause, then it's like a little less mysterious, maybe why you feel bad or something, which can help on its own. Yeah.
It can just help you be free. You can be free of that like thing that you didn't want to say or you didn't want to bring up. And I don't know if you've experienced this, if you get like a cold or something, or your throat hurts and you realize that you have to have a conversation with somebody, and it's like probably the last thing you want to do. Like, you probably want to find like a medical reason for your sore throat and like heal it. But but then once you take care of that thing that's hiding in the shadows, that's really helping you.
Yeah, exactly. For a little while, I was having an issue with my lungs. And I was like wheezing, and I had lots of allergies. And now I have none. It's strange. It's like I was convinced it's the hair from the dogs, or there's mold in the house or something. I was thinking, this is just so weird. Why do I have these allergies and this problem breathing? And I went to a ceremony, and the shaman was saying like a lot of times when people have issues with the lungs, it's like related to self-worth. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So.
And something shifted for you in the ceremony with your self-worth, where you felt like you didn't have to carry those allergies anymore.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense, and I kind of like went into that a little deeper, and so there's usually some kind of like emotional reason for the things we feel physically.
Yeah, there is a woman, so we didn't mention this, but there's a few of these where it's called Cooey diagnosis, and they use a guinea pig, and it's a little, I guess I could say it feels a little traumatic. I'm really interested in the body and really interested in these things and how they look, but also just, it's also really sad because they're so cute and fluffy. But the person that's the client, the patient, they'll bring it in and they'll use the guinea pig to cleanse the person's energy, and then once they cleanse the energy, the guinea pig passes away, and they can dissect it and see what happened to the person or why that person is sick. And for this woman came in, and apparently she didn't have a gallbladder. She had her gallbladder removed surgically, which for me, I've always seen gallbladder surgeries as kind of a suppression of anger that happens, and that can lead to problems down the road. But the guinea pig itself didn't have a gallbladder, and that was really shocking and strange. And also, I didn't understand a lot of what she was saying, and maybe you understood a little bit, but she was speaking mostly Kichwa. And they found, like, through looking, I don't know what she saw or how she knew this, but she said that her husband had been cheating on her and she never forgave him, and she also couldn't have children, and so this was like a huge root of her anger and frustration. And yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's happened a few times with the gallbladder, actually, where there have been people that had surgery with a gallbladder and then the guinea pig didn't have a gallbladder. But basically what this is they call the guinea pig a kui in Ecuador.
Queen.
And for us it's like a pet, but for them it's like always been a source of food mainly since like the Incan Empire, and probably before. People have always had these animals around, just like chickens, or like we have cows now, they had like guinea pigs. And so yeah, they'll use the guinea pig and like clean the person's energy with the guinea pig, and then it absorbs the illness of the person, and then yeah, like you said, it dies, they cut it open.
Because they're so energetically sensitive, right? The guinea pigs.
Yeah, I don't exactly know the reasoning for the guinea pig. I think it's just like a small animal that they have, like easier than a chicken or something, probably.
Yeah, somebody had told me there was a reason, like they take on energy because they're so sensitive, and the way that energy vibrates, they pick it up. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's more of a reason to the guinea pig.
Anytime somebody's told me that they can be my guinea pig after that, I'm like, no, please don't say that.
Oh my god, no. Yeah, so it's interesting though, because they used the guinea pig before, like they had x-rays and things. So now you can see some things with an x-ray, but they'll use the guinea pig, people in the country, a lot of times to see like what's going on with the person. So if the guinea pig has a problem with the liver or the gallbladder, then that means like the person will has this problem too.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there is actually a relationship. Like I was a little skeptical at first. Well, actually no, I kind of believed in these things already, but I imagine there are a lot of skeptical people. But I was surprised that they'll say like, oh, the guinea pig has like bleeding in the head, like, and the person would say like, yeah, actually I fell off my bike, I had a head injury. It's like interesting.
Wow.
It's almost always like some correlations. So yeah, that's the guinea pig. And then yeah, this lady, like, I didn't understand 100% either, because they talk a lot in Kichwa. Mercedes was able to just kind of know, like, that, yeah, the woman had been cheated on, she couldn't have kids, and so that's why she had this bad energy and was having some physical issues because of this, like, you know, kind of trauma she went through.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's amazing. And it's amazing that, you know, regardless of our ethics, that we have a lot of ethics around this at this point. I mean, maybe we would eat meat, but we would say it's not okay to sacrifice an animal for medicine. But, you know, just knowing, like, in some situations, people being so sick, if that was, like, really powerful cure, then it's important to have those resources and tools out there, even if we don't use them all the time. Like, I would never consider doing it because I don't think I have something that compromising or challenging to me, and maybe there's other ways.
Yeah. Yeah, for us it's different. It's like we're not from that tradition or culture, so it's not totally necessary, but that's like how people grew up in the country there. It's like their grandma did that, like their great grandma did that, and so they're just familiar with the guinea pig cleansing. And a lot of times they have like some distrust in Western medicine, so they don't want to go to the doctor, or they don't have enough money maybe. So it's
Mm.
just easier to bring the queen and see what's wrong.
Yeah, it's just a powerful tool, and people are comfortable with it, and they probably don't trust Western medicine as much as they trust like something their grandmother knows how to do or whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there are a lot of people that are a little, yeah, distrusting of Western medicine.
And
So,
so you mentioned that Mercedes learned from her grandmother. You were telling me a story about a dream she had when she was a kid.
yeah. I don't know if I'm gonna share that story for a second. Um, yeah, I won't share that story in too much depth just because it's a pretty personal story. Like, she told me this story and she said she had never really even told her children before, and she told me and her son.
Oh,
And that was like
wow.
the first time I ever heard about it. But yeah, she went through like, she basically was saying she went through some like really, yeah, like an initiatory experience when she was a child. She had like a really, yeah, really hard experience where she connected with some spirits from the nature, I think. And yeah, that was like how she started being able to heal people when she was like young, like around 10 years old or something. She said she started just like knowing what was wrong with people and what to do. And yeah, she learned some things with her grandma, she said. So her grandma was a healer and a midwife.
Wow.
Yeah, very interesting person.
Yeah, she is. She's very interesting. Yeah, it was such an honor to be able to go and experience her work and work with her clients and bring a little bit of energy into that. And she asked us to sing sometimes for the Olympias, and she asked us to put our hands on the clients. And I thought it was interesting. One of the days there was a patient with, I think it was a knee pain, and they were using stinging nettles for massage, which I think it was
Yeah.
maybe as not as strong as like a completely fresh nettle from the plant. It was kind of torn up and dried out a little bit.
No, it's fresh nettles.
Wow.
Yeah, they use them for like the Olympias here too a lot of times. When they give Olympia, they'll use like fresh plants, like rue is one they use a lot. They'll use nettle, and it's a little painful. Yeah, it stings, obviously.
It's potent
Um,
anti-inflammatory and
yeah, it helps with the circulation though. So they'll do that with massages. They use something called part of quinoa. So it's like a variety of quinoa that also helps with the blood circulation. So they'll use that in massages. It's like hot too. They pay attention to like hot and cold things. If the person is like very cold inside or hot inside,
yeah.
um, there's different herbs.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'd love to incorporate more herbal things into massage using fresh herbs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if someone has a lot of, or if someone needs like, I'm trying to think of like Western herbs they'll use, but they'll use like plantain a lot if there's like inflammation, like they have a cut or they have like they were hit or something. They might use plantain. Um, yeah, lots of herbs that they'll put on the body, which is pretty different as well in
Yeah,
the
I
U.S. So
remember when we were going to a client's house, we were like on the side of the road, and she was like, "We need to collect these herbs for the client and
yeah,
use them for the massage." So she's very
I know we'll
resourceful.
just be around. Yeah, we'll just be going to the client's house and she'll be picking plants on the side of the road. And
Oh, I have a funny story when we went to a client's house up in the mountains, and I think we had to wait for them to come back, and so we were just kind of driving around, and we found this farm, and she got really excited about, well, first there was milk thistle, and she said, this is super uncontaminated. We need to harvest this. And we ended up, I think we had garden shears and all this stuff in the truck, so we got to harvest them. And then she got really excited about planting, what were they planting? They were planting crops in the field, and she wanted to help, and she grabbed a bag of seeds, and she was like a little kid.
Yeah, she's just always moving. She's up for anything. It's like always an adventure there. It's always unpredictable and spontaneous. So, yeah, we were like supposed to go to a client's house, and then the client wasn't there. So then we just like walked down the street looking for her, and then we found her husband. And yeah, he was like in the fields farming, and so it was just like,
oh, that was your husband.
Just like kicked off her shoes and was like throwing the seeds.
I had no idea what was going on. I was just along for the ride.
I know. Yeah, it's really different, like the communication, and it's not, I don't know, it's part because we're foreigners, I think, but partly that's just like how they are there.
Yeah, I remember everything takes like 10 times longer when you're there. It's like stuff just comes up, and you have to really be in the flow as opposed to being on like a schedule.
Yeah, I'll always be like, so what do we have to do today? And then she'll say something, and then it's like, okay, so we're gonna go to this lady's house or something. She'll be like, no, we're doing this. I'm like, okay. So I can never really like ask what you're gonna do. It always changes.
Awesome. Well, do you have any other funny stories or memories of that trip?
Yeah, we got to go to a wedding.
Oh, yes.
New experience. I had never been to a wedding in Otavalo. I never been to like an indigenous type wedding. So one thing that's cool about Otavalo is they have this thing called like the Pampa Mesa. So a lot of times when there are events or weddings or things, people will just bring tons and tons of food, and they'll just like lay out a blanket on the ground and just like pile up like potatoes and corn and beans. And so they did that at the wedding, just like a giant like pile of all these potatoes and corn. And I thought that was the main meal. First of all, we didn't even know the people. Mercedes invited us.
Yeah, we got invited to random weddings. We showed up and we got decked out in like local sort of Kichwa wear. These patterns and beads.
You should dress up. Okay. So we dressed up. Yeah. But people are so hospitable. Anytime like you go to someone's house or like at the wedding, it's always just like first thing like a giant plate of food and
and they fed us so much food there, and we thought it was gonna be like just like a mesa full of food, and it was like a mountain full of like, but it was corn and potatoes and rice and beans and they like dispersed them to people. They like started passing out things of food, and then they had like 2 more courses after that. We're like, how are we gonna eat all this stuff?
I know, yeah. We all had like plastic bags. We were all sitting around, and then some people would come with just like a giant bowl of the food, and they dump it for you. You just be eating there with your hands, and then some more people, Mercedes and other people came around with just this giant plate of like steak, more potatoes, more beans and rice, and then like a giant bowl of soup that they were. But it was so funny, at all the parties they always have like 1 cup for everyone. They have like 5 cups for like 650 people or something. So they just have like 1 person with a soda coming around. And then you drink the cup of soda. And
they're like mixed drinks. Wow. Yeah, I mean, we danced. We got in like a circle, and we would like dance in one direction, and then we would turn around and dance in the other direction.
It was super fun. Lots of dancing and music, and always parties in Otavalo.
And I heard that there was so when we got to the truck and we were all getting ready to go to the wedding, there was the wedding party, like the bride and the groom and a bunch of people were outside of the whatever the version of courthouse is, the legal place where you get married and sign the paperwork, and they would leave the courthouse and then go to the wedding reception. So it was mostly just the reception party. And it's interesting because Katie, you had told me that people in this tradition, they don't ever live together until they get married. They just live with their family. And so it's almost like they're starting this, it's almost like a housewarming too, where you're bringing all this food to their metaphorical table. And
Yeah, it's pretty different, the culture here. Like there are exceptions for sure, but in general, people don't live with their boyfriend or girlfriend until they're married. And they live with their family, or if they get divorced, they live with their family again.
yeah.
So people are just like so much closer with their parents and grandparents and brothers and sisters, and everyone is way closer.
Yeah, and just even culturally, like being supported and being with people was so important that when I was on the buses, sometimes people would say, "Oh, Solita, like you're alone, you're by yourself.
Yeah.
I need to help you." And I had a lady sit with me on the bus to make sure that nobody like tried to rob me or something. You know, even though I wasn't worried about it, they were just like, "Oh, we have to check on her."
Yeah, they like really take care of each other. Yeah, and it's really rare, like you see a woman by herself or like a woman lives alone. It's like, oh wow, she lives alone. Like, or they hear that like we will, move out of our parents' house usually when we're like 18 and go to college, and they're just like, wow, that's just so crazy. Like, don't you get lonely? Isn't it expensive to live on your own?
Yeah.
Rather like, don't you miss your family? It's just
Yeah.
like such a contrast for them.
It's so
Or
different.
if you do live alone, people always are inviting you to their house here. People are always just saying, "Oh, stay for dinner, stay at my house. Like I have a bed here, you can sleep here," and just totally random people.
Yeah, I love it. I love the closeness
That,
and community
yeah.
of that.
I went to
Yeah.
that one lady's house, Hortensia, this like super sweet old lady who lives on the mountain with her husband. And her kids live like just up the mountain, but she says she's so lonely, and so like the first time I met her, she was saying, "Oh, come stay with me. You can stay at my house." And then you came, and she told both of us again that we could stay with her.
Yeah, it's so sweet. That's one thing that I remember about my trip is I never actually felt alone. Like I always felt like I had like my friends with me when I was traveling.
Yeah,
It was really
yeah.
really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you want to share anything about like stuff that you have coming up, projects, new retreats, just what's coming up for you these days?
Sure, yes. So we have a couple different things going on. So someone reached out to us recently and was saying they were like interested in staying for a longer retreat, or like a more like long term, like he wanted to stay a month, but he was saying like he was strapped for money, and he was kind of interested in coming and being able to like decide while he was here what he wanted to do, like talking with Miguel, or talking with the shaman and seeing like, do I need to do a ceremony, or which ceremony would be good for like the next one, instead of like having a planned retreat. So we have this new option that we're gonna do for January, February, and March, and maybe longer, where people can come, and then they'll just like be a little more independent than like a regular retreat, but they can decide while they're here like which ceremonies they want to do, and if they want a plant bath, or if they need a limpia, or things like that. They can decide while they're here
Nice.
if they want to check ayahuasca, or if they drink San Pedro and they say, wow, this was like really helpful, then
More time to integrate that.
Yeah, so we have that open, and it's like a little more flexible, so people can come for a couple weeks, or if they want to stay like an extra week, they'll just like pay a deposit, and then it'll cover like the entire stay while they're here. And then yeah, they can just decide while they're here what ceremonies they want or when.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's super exciting. And you also were putting together some artisan stuff from local friends and community members, right?
Yeah, so I had a lot of people reaching out to me who make people who make jewelry or like different types of crafts because I make jewelry too, and I have like a website for my jewelry, and so people knew that, and they were saying, "Hey, can you help me sell this jewelry, or can you help me with this?" So I have this page called Tierra Market on Etsy now, and it's different jewelry from. There's a woman in the Amazon who I'm friends with who makes jewelry with different seeds and feathers, and I know some people in Cereburo and people here who make beaded jewelry, and people in Otavalo who make really nice silver jewelry with stones, and someone who makes ceramic instruments. So I have a shop now for all the awesome Ecuadorian goods.
Yeah, your shop is amazing. I checked it out and super affordable for people, but also for people living in Ecuador, like it's a improvement on the, the living wage and stuff that they're making from being able to sell their stuff.
Yeah, yeah. The economy here is not as great as the U.S. or Europe, so it helps a lot. Like people usually don't have like a lot of extra money to be able to buy like jewelry necessarily, or like instruments, or these extra things for like a decent price. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're able to make a bit more money this way, and yeah, have more customers. So,
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, thanks for joining me on the show, and I'm sure people can get a lot of good information and nuggets about what it's like to be in South America and a little bit more about what the retreats are like and what the traditional medicines are. So, spreading the word, I think, is really incredible.
yeah, thank you, Jill.
Yeah,
Very
of course.
nice. See you again and talk to you.
Yeah, and I will share, I believe, your Instagram and your page with your jewelry if people want to reach out and learn more about it, or your retreats. So yeah, I will do that in the show notes.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Talk to you later.